Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. And welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me for the second time, it's been a little while, but Melissa Byrne, thank you so much for coming back onto the show.
Yay. Thank you so much for asking me back. I'm
Mhm.
always excited to talk about movies with other movie lovers. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And we all love movies, and that's why we're here. But before we jump into the questions, would you like to shamelessly plug anything for the audience?
Yeah, sure. So I too also have a YouTube channel. Just look up
Mhm.
my name on YouTube. And right now I'm doing a weekly podcast or vodcast on the show Silo. It's an Apple TV show. It's a
Oh,
sci-fi show.
nice.
It's like a mystery show. It's like a post-apocalyptic show. Yeah, I'm doing that with two of my friends every single week. Um, and sometimes I am doing reviews here and there. Um, my last review that I did was for Wicked. So if you
Mhm.
guys, I'm sure you guys have read all the 1,001 essays and all the crying interviews that Cynthia and Ariana have been doing all over the place. And if you're somehow interested in hearing my thoughts about Wicked after all that, you can go ahead and find it on my channel too.
Well, I'll say when I circle what Silo season two's on my watch list to check out. So once I do, I'll have to check out your show about it.
Yeah.
It's Apple has some really interesting shows on their
Yeah.
streaming service, and that definitely was one that those first three episodes of the first season is just like, what is this? And it
Yeah.
just like hooks you. And that had a killer ending to season one. So I'm
Love season
very
one.
excited to see where season two goes. So
Yeah.
I'll certainly be checking that out. And
Awesome.
yes, everybody's talking about Wicked, so make sure to check out Melissa's thoughts about it. Now, jumping into the questions. So these are a couple like mirrored questions. So thinking about previously released film you haven't checked out, what are you most excited to go check out?
Previously, like from like the past, correct?
It could be as recent as you want it to be, as long as it's actually come out, or it could be like one of those, it's on your watch list and it's been on your watch list for a while.
Yeah. Well, I we mentioned this a little bit before recording, but like I still haven't seen a Nora. I know. The cinephiles are coming at me already with their freaking forks and stuff. But I am waiting for it to be accessible to me on the
Mhm.
interwebs somehow, and I will check it out. I am very excited. It's kind of wild to me. I think her name is Mikey something.
Yeah.
I remember her as the girl from Scream
Yeah.
5. So it's
Yeah.
kind of so wild to me that like she's in this like Oscar buzzy movie. I'm like, wait, what? Oh,
Mhm.
okay. All right. She's on this because I think it was a I think it's a Sean Baker film, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed Florida Project when that came out back in the day. So and I literally have heard no one say anything bad about this, and I hear it's kind of
Mhm.
like it's like a surprisingly funny film.
Yes.
So I am very excited to check that out.
It's purposefully Sean Baker's trying to like lull you into like this is a modern pretty woman, and it's way more than that. And that's what makes it so interesting. And it was one that like if I really want to see a movie that's getting the slow rollout, I'll go into Philly to go see it. I don't like dealing with going into the city very often. So like and I'm like, I'm seeing Honora, so I'm going in to check it out. And I got to see it in Dolby, which was a very interesting experience because like you wouldn't think that's the kind of film that they'd be
Yeah.
pushing for like the bigger like premiere platforms at AMC, but like it was really worth it. It was a very interesting experience, but hopefully it'll be on VOD soon and accessible to people because you got to get that buzz going into, I guess, the Globes coming up in about a month probably. And then,
Yeah.
it's Oscar season. It'll
I know.
certainly be that. And if she doesn't get nominated for Best Actor, I'm going to be shocked.
Oh my.
Um, I think a lot of people will be shocked if she does not. But
Yeah.
let's flip that into the future, though. What's an
Mhm.
upcoming film that you're most excited to check out?
I am excited to. Okay, this is gonna, I think, trickle down to one of the later questions. But okay, so I have never seen any of the 28 years, weeks, days,
Okay.
months later films. But I saw that trailer that they dropped, I think, yesterday, and it really got my attention. See, that
Yeah.
is an example of like a great trailer, okay?
Mhm.
Because I've never seen the other ones for whatever reason, which is weird because I do love like horror films.
Mhm.
I think maybe I was always kind of like maybe not thrilled about watching zombie films, but I hear it's not really like a zombie movie per se. So that kind of piqued my interest from what I've heard. But now I'm interested in seeing the previous films
Mhm.
because of that trailer. I think that was a very well done trailer. That's how they should be made because a lot of them these days are kind of like show you the entire films. And I know there's data out there saying they make them that way because that's what people get their butts into seats, which you can't fight the data. It's kind of
Us.
fair. I get it. But I also don't want to be spoiled
Yeah.
completely. So hopefully I'm able to restrain myself and not watch any more of trailers that
Mhm.
will come out for that one. But yeah, seeing that one, it makes me curious about going back and seeing the original films.
I that automatically became one of my most anticipated films after watching that trailer yesterday. That
Yeah.
is so creepy. The
Yeah.
whole Rudyard Kipling poem that they're like creepishly reading during
Yeah.
the trailer. I'm just like, that was a choice and it worked
What a
because it's
choice. Because it
creepy.
made me think, like, what's going on? Why are we doing this? Oh, Ray Fiennes is in this? I
Yeah,
don't think I've seen him in like a creepy movie. I mean, he's Voldemort, of course, but like,
but
I
yeah.
don't know. Like, I wouldn't picture him in this type of film. So that really also piqued my interest. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson is in this, and then
Mhm,
Jodie Comer, who I think is amazing. So
mhm.
I'm for it. So I want to prepare by watching the other films first.
The 28 Days Later really earns that legacy of
Mhm.
being like that combination of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland is something special. And that has a great cast too with Cillian Murphy, Brendan Gleeson, Chris Eccleston. And surprise, surprise, the humans are the worst all along. Like any good zombie.
Like any zombie post-apocalyptic movie.
28 Weeks Later, I think, is a really fine film. It's that opening scene, though, that's like
Mm,
an all timer that, like, holy crap. And then, not gonna lie, it doesn't really like live the rest of the rest of the movie doesn't quite live up to it. But
mhm.
from what I understand, they're planning like a trilogy out of this. And I'm just happy to see Danny Boyle and Alex Garland back doing this
Yeah,
together.
that's the other thing that I saw that they are team. I was like, oh, okay, team. Okay.
Yes, because Alex Garland got a lot of experience before directing, writing for Danny Boyle.
Writing.
So it'll be interesting, and that trailer certainly sold it. Now, one thing that a lot of people love to complain about are remakes, because we get a lot of them. But
Mhm.
Melissa, what's a film that you really think deserves to get remade?
Okay, so you sent me this, and I was like, I'm gonna keep my answer. I want to see Twilight get remade. Here are my reasons why. I know that they announced an animation, I think, show movie. I don't know which one, but I don't want a story that's like with love, romance, and passion to be animated because that's just not what I'm picturing. I'm like, if I'm picturing passion, I'm not picturing cartoons doing it. Okay, I'm just gonna be very
Yeah,
transparent right now.
fair.
And I was that girl who back in the day who loved those books, and I was disappointed by the films, which is crazy because nowadays you're seeing Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart like doing these super indie like awards
Mhm.
nominated films, working with these amazing filmmakers. So it's like, okay, the problem necessarily wasn't the actors. I think maybe it was just like everything else around them. So I kind of, and I think everything obviously gets remade. They come back. It's kind of crazy to me that Harry Potter is being remade, and those are the best on-screen adaptation films I think I've ever seen. So it's like wild to me that's being remade into a television show. So I'm just like, well, why can't Twilight come back maybe as a TV show? Maybe that is the medium that it belongs in, and it can get made better. I think there's a part of me that will always maybe like the originals for like the nostalgia of that time in my life. But I remember thinking, like, I really hope one day somebody remakes this. I literally thought that as a 19-year-old, please somebody remakes this in the future because it just deserves to be a better made franchise.
Which you're absolutely right. Like, you look back in hindsight, it's like these movies had Robert Pattinson and
Mhm.
Kristen Stewart leading them, which if
Yeah.
you were to cast the two of them in a movie today, you'd be like, this is gonna be like Oscar attention. And it was like not when Twilight came out.
No.
And like Anna Kendrick's in it.
Yeah.
In like I'm a big Michael Sheen fan at this point. Like Michael
Yeah.
Sheen was in it.
He was.
Um, it's like there's a lot of people. Taylor Lautner's in it, but I don't think Taylor Lautner's next necessarily the one who's going to be getting a lot of attention at this point. But it's it's going to happen. You're right. If Warner Brothers is so desperate to make a Max series of Harry Potter, we're definitely going to get Twilight
It's
remakes
gotta
at
happen.
some point.
Yeah. And then they announced the animated one, but I'm hoping like somebody in that executive office is like, no, wait, let's rethink the animation angle. Like, come on.
I want to know who thought, like, you know what? They're like sitting there with like their stack of Twilight books. It should be animated. Like, who thought of that?
I don't know. I never would have thought of it that way. I don't. I want live action for that one. I just do.
I feel I feel like the only way it would work, it's like it's a framed narrative
Hmm.
of like some girl sitting there writing her fan fiction in like animated form of Twilight. And see, that would be creative, but like where would it even come at? I have so many questions, but that's for another time.
Yeah, yeah,
But now, obviously, the theater going experience can be a very special thing. Also, can
yeah.
be not the special thing. But here, we're
Mhm.
here to talk about some fondness. But Melissa, what's your fondest memory of going to the movies?
Fondest memory. Well, it's probably the first time that I was taken to go to the theater as a kid with my mom. She took me to go watch 1999's The Mummy, and my life was forever
Nice.
because I just remember me and my mom having the best time watching this
Mhm,
together because that movie is so funny. And
mhm.
I think it's still to this day just kind of underrated, and you don't see those kinds of films being made anymore.
No,
It's so funny.
100%.
She and I were like, I remember us just laughing together so much at this because it's such a funny movie. And ever since then, back in the day when cable was still like a thing in our lives, whenever it was on TV, I was like, all
Yeah.
right, my day's planned. I'm watching this, and my mom would walk in like, you're watching this again? I'm like, yeah, because like every time I watch it, it's like I'm watching it for the first time. I'm just like, it just makes me so happy. It brings me joy. It has the comedy. Brandon Fraser is so funny in that movie. It has a little bit of romance because
Yep.
Rachel Weisz and he have such great chemistry and great banter. And there's adventure and there's mystery. There's like a little bit of spookiness because it's a mummy who's like out killing
Mhm.
people. It just is a blend of so many different things, which I think today is actually kind of hard to pull off to do all those things
Yes.
together for whatever reason, even though like we're supposed to be like more advanced and people are so talented. There's so much talent out there. Like, why is that so hard to be able to get made today? But I wish like I think it does have like a lot of fans, but I wish it had like a lot more fans. And I just think it's great. It never gets old to me. Of course, some of the CGI, of course, does not live up to today's, obviously. But I think even when you're watching it now, you can still kind of like appreciate it for what it
Yeah.
is and look past that because of everything else that it has.
I'm just like imagining rubber mouth Emotep just like rah.
Yeah.
But like no, that movie is special.
It's so
And
good.
I feel like and I'm not here to pick on comic book movies, but there's a point for me bringing this up. I feel like Hollywood forgot how to make a good old-fashioned adventure film because
Mhm.
action adventure really now is just comic book movies. The
Yeah.
vast majority of them are. And there was a time where we had The Mask of Zorro, The Mummy, and Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's just like that was some good
That
time.
was the era.
And there's swashbuckling fun. They were like this classic kind of Hollywood feel. And Brendan Fraser was such a great leading man
Hmm.
at that point in that kind of film, and he was so charming.
Yeah.
And the Mummy, the bisexual awakening of a generation,
Oh yeah.
between
Two hot
between
people kissing. Yeah, it was great.
Rachel Weisz
Yeah.
and Brendan Fraser just looking absolutely gorgeous, both of them.
Yeah.
This is a franchise that could use a legacy sequel that I 100% would go see.
Oh my God, yes, I would go see it, but it has to be Rachel Weisz. She wasn't in the
Yes.
third movie for whatever reason. I'm like, no, like, please offer her their money. They both got Oscars.
Yes.
Pay them what they want. Bring them both back.
Um, no offense, Maria Bello, but
Yeah.
like you weren't cutting it.
No, no.
No.
I was like,
And
Rachel.
at this point, like, because I distinctly remember when the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor came out, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I can appreciate the idea that they have like shaking it up and taking it
Mhm.
into another culture. It's
Yeah.
just a bunch of the stuff around it weren't. And no, that first one is so special, and that scared the living crap out of me as a kid.
Hmm.
Like 10-year-old Shane was not prepared for the Mummy. But now I absolutely love every second of it. And Benny screaming, "We have all the horses," and Rick saying, "You're on the wrong side of the river," lives rent free in a whole generation of people's
So,
minds because it was so good. Such a great burn.
I
Just
love
like,
it.
bam.
Yeah.
Now, expectations
Yeah.
are a big part of our experiences of watching a movie. But Melissa, what's a film that really exceeded your expectations and surprised you?
There is a movie that came out this year called The Substance that
Ah,
I feel like I ended up liking more than I thought that I would because there is a little subgenre of movies called weird movies. And I feel like sometimes they can work for me, sometimes they don't. They just kind of over the line. Like think of like a lot of A24 films, which I love that studio. I like that they take risks in
yeah.
things and they will take the chance in making those odd films. But sometimes, or a lot of times, they just kind of step over the line of weirdness and just take me out of things. And I know I think this is actually a movie that made this, but I was using A24 as an example. But movie, I think they did the weirdness right because I feel
Hmm.
like it all still made sense. Like the weirdness, everything represented something. Every frame of
Yes.
that film made sense to me. It all represented something. And the cinematography was beautiful. I think the acting was great. I think with the messages, it was very powerful and it's very, I think, timely for a lot of different people. Not only people in Hollywood, but I think with anybody who experienced some sort of body dysmorphia. I
Yeah.
think it was very intentional. And I think I've heard criticism about the third act about it being like too crazy and weird, but I disagree. I think it really hammers down the message. And I think when you're looking and thinking about it, that movie is actually a really sad film. It's such a sad story about what this woman goes through, what she puts herself through, how she sees herself, and how society affects the way that she sees herself. I just thought it was really well done, and it was a long film, which I had like an issue with a lot of times in these today's movies. But I think it was one of those rare instances where I didn't mind the length of this because I was not bored for 1 second of that movie. So far I haven't seen Anora yet, and I still have other films to watch. But so far, it's probably my top movie of this year.
I The Substance is a film that I'm like, if you were bored watching that movie, I think we watched a different movie.
Yeah,
Because like that is unrelenting of
yeah.
just wild. Because
Hmm.
like boredom is not a word that I would describe at any point watching that film.
Hmm.
A lot is, and it certainly is a lot. And I remember sitting in the theater and watching the last 10, 15 minutes of that
Yeah.
movie, just being like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But it hammers it home, and yes, it is indeed a really great representative film of it's really sad that women and people in the spotlight are made to feel this way
Mhm.
specifically, and the horrifying lengths they'll go to
Mhm.
appease others' perceptions of them. And also, I want to know how much cocaine that they gave Dennis Quaid to do to be in this movie.
God, yeah. He was so like he was great at being like this disgusting piece of human. He was
Yes,
so good at it.
it's so funny because what we wind up seeing at the very end of the film, is it human? Well, I don't think Dennis Quaid was in this movie. He was a vile piece of crap, but he looked like he was having so much damn fun
Yeah, he was
doing
playing
it.
the crap out of that. But yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
I was so happy to see it because I think it is a body horror and it is weird. So I was happy to see it make the cut at the Globes. I don't know if it'll be Oscar nominated because I think for the Academy it might be a little bit too much. But I'm always rooting for horror to get its way in there because
yes.
I think it's an underappreciated genre. So yeah,
There was a interesting number of horror films represented under the comedy category of
yeah,
the Academy of the Golden Globes, which
yeah,
it's funny because I think one of the last things that we had messaged back and forth was about Heretic. And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like, yes, because Hugh Grant was amazing in the comedy known as Heretic.
That was not a comedy film. Yeah, it's like they don't know what to make of like different types of genre, like whether it's like horror, like fantasy. It's
No.
like there's like more nuances to that. There's different things.
You know what? Maybe they thought they were watching Book of Mormon and thought it was a musical. So maybe that's why it was in that category. Now, different Mormon movie.
Yeah,
Very much darker. But no, I would be elated if like Demi Moore got nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress for The Substance.
yeah.
We'll have to see. We'll have to
Wow,
see how that turns out.
I hope so.
Now, Melissa, I don't know how much of a reader you are,
Mhm.
but what's a written work that you would love to see adapted into a film?
I am a reader,
Okay.
and you know what? There is one genre that I read because I read to escape. I read to have fun. I don't read to learn. So disclaimer right
Okay.
now.
Mhm.
I am a reader of the various romance genre.
Okay.
Now, I am a girl when I'm trying to escape into my books. I like things to be like have a happy ever after. I like
Mhm.
low angst because you know what? Real life can be really hard and really shitty a lot of the time. So, like
Yes.
my downtime, I like to watch YouTube and listen to audiobooks and listen to podcasts because that's how I unwind. So, going back to my I guess my high school to make my inner child happy. I want to see like because like every 5 years I'm due to be obsessed all over again with like this new romance movie, and a lot of the times it happens with like younger it happens with like people who are younger
Mhm.
on screen than me, and I don't know what that says about me. I have to like talk it out with like a therapist probably, but I don't know. It's just something so like feel good when it's like young love, when it's like set in like a college
Mhm.
romance. So there is this book series called the Off Campus series, which it did get picked up. It's by Elle Kennedy. But a lot of times things get picked up and then we don't hear about it for years and it goes away. So I'm just hoping that that is a thing that does become true, though, is that her off-campus series does become like a whole show on Amazon. And it just kind of has to do with various college age people. All the guys are on a hockey team, and then it's the story about how they all meet their girls, but she writes like a lot of like different types of traumas that they've been through. So some people have gotten like assaulted in the past, some people have
Mhm.
like parents who are alcoholics, some people have dealt with like abuse in their past. So I just really appreciate when the stories, when it's like a romance, but like I think a lot of times what's missing from romance books these days is the actual like seeing them actually fall for each other and like seeing the realistic development of a relationship. And I think with Elle Kennedy, with the first book, especially, she does like a really great example of that. I always tell people this is one of the rare cases where I like from strangers to friends to lovers trope because I think she did such a great job of that. So I would love to see that come to life on screen, but I really want great acting. There's a trend where they're getting like TikTok influencers who like no hate to them, get your money, hustle, hustle and bustle. But I need y'all to get some good like acting coaches and stuff because a pretty face is a beautiful thing. But I need you to be able to like read the lines as if you're not reading, but like you're actually like living in it. So I'm hoping for great actors and great direction. Because I think, again, even though it's set for this younger audience, it doesn't mean that it can't be elevated and sophisticated because I the story still reached to so many people. And I think a lot of times love, not to be corny, but like love is like a lot of us experience it or like we want it. It's things that we always
Yeah.
see. It's why we do the things that we do a lot of the times. I think and a lot of times it brings us joy. So that's why I just want to have like more like good, well acted, well written love stories out there.
Hey, that's very fair.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a kind of like an awkward time, especially in film for
Mhm.
romances. Because like especially like rom-coms, it's like what
Yeah.
happened to rom-coms? They just disappeared on the streaming and there's just a bunch of Netflix movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um it's very interesting, like you brought up, like because that's a college setting. It's just like I work at a college and very much work in the academic kinds of things. I
Mhm.
spend very little time talking to students about like their, like social lives and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I certainly get my fix from the Sex Lives of College Girls because I love that show.
I love that show.
That's
Oh my God, I can't believe you watched that show too. I love that show. It's been good so far this season. So
I
funny.
which they're in a very interesting place,
Yeah,
having to pivot a little bit with.
yeah,
I feel like Renee Rapp's like peace.
yeah.
It was just like,
Left.
and but I love that show so much, and the dynamic of the four of them,
Mhm.
and each of them in their own, ventures into trying to like develop relationships, and they're all very, very different people and
Yeah.
have very different approaches. Um, I'm definitely much more of a like Timothy Chalamet's sister character.
Oh my God, I love her. She's just so like unassuming. She's
Mhm.
just so sincere. She's like, and then that actress, I think her name's Pauline. She's so good at playing that type of character too.
Oh, I love that show a lot. So I'm always down for some good romances.
Yeah,
So I'm about that. Now, I think you were alluding to this earlier because you talk
yeah.
about movie trailers.
Mhm.
That 28 years later one's certainly a great one. But what's your favorite movie trailer?
I so sometimes okay, so I'm thinking about one of my favorite movies ever,
Mhm.
um, which is a Fincher film. It's a little movie called Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That is an example of a trailer that is pretty long, but because when I watched it, I hadn't read the books and I didn't know anything about it, that I didn't know
Yeah.
what I was seeing. I just know I was like, okay, I'm intrigued here. Like there's like
Mhm.
this girl, she's on this bike. She all like looks weird. There's Daniel Craig, who's like Bond, but he's like this guy who's this journalist, and he's
Mhm.
kind of like, a little bit morally, and um, I just remember thinking, okay, I know it's a mystery. It looks very interesting because I can get behind a movie that has a heroine who kind of goes against the grain. I love those stories. I think a lot of us can relate to people who are just a little bit outside of the box kind of when you feel like a little bit out of step. And I think immediately with the characterization of Rooney from that trailer, you can kind of see, okay, like you kind of know she kind of like goes against the grain. Then you also see that character like on the poster, which immediately kind of like intrigued me. And I also remember I forgot the name of the trailer song, but I remember also liking the trailer music because I'm that nerd that'll look up like trailer music for blah 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 so I could like find the name of the song. So that's a
There
trailer
was
that
the Immigrant Song cover
I
that was like
did.
really creepy and interesting and different.
Yeah.
And that I'm a huge fan of that movie. And I feel like a lot of people feel like it's like middle of the road kind of Fincher or disappointing Fincher. I'm like, I'm disappointed in your take on that movie. But it's something that's like I remember that trailer. And
Yeah.
that got me so excited. My friend Kevin and I were like, when this comes out, we're going.
Yeah.
Because that's how pumped that trailer got me.
Yeah.
Have you seen the original trilogy of
I
films?
haven't because I was always like, I'm not gonna watch that. I'm gonna wait for Fincher sequels, and it's like a bajillion years later,
Years
and it has.
later, and you're just like, where are they?
Yeah, and it's just like I'm so fixated on Rooney Mara as Lisbeth. I just feel like she was so good. Like she got nominated for an Oscar for that role, and it's because she freaking bodied that role. And I
Yeah.
watched all the behind the scenes making of it. She like really got piercing. She became a smoker. She like starved herself. It was like I don't condone all of that stuff that's bad for your body. But I was like, damn, you're so dedicated. And I just thought she's so good in that movie because like she truly like disappeared. I don't really see her. I see the character that she's playing.
Mm,
She's so good. So I have seen it so many times, and I
mm,
was always hoping and hoping that they were gonna make the sequels. And I knew that that was the intention, but
yeah.
they released it during Christmas time in 2011, which in hindsight maybe it was not the best choice because it didn't make because they thought it was gonna be like a huge hit because the books were huge, but and it was successful, but it wasn't huge enough. And I get that, but
Yes.
I was like, y'all suck. Because then you try to make another one years later with the spider whatever
Yeah, with
spider web.
Claire Foy
I thought it
was
was
in that one.
terrible. Okay, like
It
no,
was so
no,
disappointing.
it was so
I
disappointing.
um I read the books and
Uh-huh.
I own the three original films,
Yeah.
and Noomi Rapace is a very different kind of Lisbeth because like
Hmm.
Noomi Rapace has like the look of wow, she just looks like a sexy, cool biker chick kind of thing, but
Uh-huh.
like she's still accessible. Like
Yeah.
the approach that they went with what Rooney Mara did was she had a lot of piercings. Her hair wasn't what you would expect it to be. She was extremely skinny and everything, and it was a very she felt more like somebody who wouldn't fit into society.
Yeah.
Like Numi
People need her.
Rapace, her approach was more like she just like looks too cool for school. A little bit kind of thing. I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of the first two films
Uh-huh.
in that trilogy. Uh the last one really disappointed me, and it becomes like a really slow like courtroom drama.
Hmm.
And I'm like, this does not match the vibe or the intensity of the first two films, but
Yeah.
I still think it's definitely worth checking out, and especially now that like I I don't think we're ever going to get them. It's like, are we going to get the the girl who played with fire or Mindhunter season 3 first? That's basically where we're at. So
Yeah. I know.
neither are very likely, but that is a amazing trailer for
Yeah.
sure.
Love
Now,
it.
speaking of music and uses of music for movies,
Oh
what's your
yes.
favorite use of a song for a movie?
I immediately thought of Silence of the Lambs. You know,
Okay.
when he's dancing. What's the name of that song? I had looked it up because I don't know the name of it.
Goodbye, horses.
Yes, that one. Because it's like a pumpy song, but it's like used for a disturbing scene. And I always appreciate that good like contrast where like things don't make sense, but they're put together because I feel like it makes it even more kind of like disturbing to see. And I think that was a very interesting placement of a song in a film.
It's like, you do.
Yeah, he's just like dancing, wearing
And then
skin.
it's just like, wait a minute. Which
Yeah.
also, one of my favorite parody jokes in
Mhm.
any movie is Clerks 2. When Silent Bob shows up with the cassette and starts playing that song, and Jay's like, "Oh," and he starts dancing and mimics the moment with Buffalo Bill in it. This is ridiculous. Which
Oh my
speaking
God.
of speaking of songs, so like going back to the
Yeah.
girl with the dragon tattoo,
Hmm.
when Stellan Skarsgård starts playing sail like it's like
Oh yeah, yeah. I think isn't it Enya? Sail away.
I have never felt so unnerved by Enya in my
It's
whole
great.
entire life.
That's a great one too. Oh my god.
Speaking of uses of music in really
Yeah,
creepy scenes, so but I'm
yeah,
like, that is not how I want to remember my Enya
yeah.
from that scene, but definitely a good one. Now, I don't know if you're much of a sit and listen to movie scores kind of person, but if you're gonna pick one, what's that movie score you're gonna put on?
It's got to be Trent and Atticus. I'm a Fincher swore. I am.
There you go.
I would listen to the score for Gone Girl a lot. I loved it, and also
Mhm,
Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I was obsessed, and
mhm.
also the score for Social Network, and also the score for Soul. They're just like, do they have an Oscar? I think they do for Soul, actually.
They did win
um,
for Soul. I think they
yeah,
did they win two? I know they won for Soul. I know
yeah,
100% that happened.
yeah,
I feel like they won for another one. I I would lose my mind if they win another one this year for challengers.
yeah.
It's like we're going to the club at the Oscars this year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have to answer any one of theirs because I'm always like after I watch the film, I go look up the score so I can
Yeah.
listen to it because I do love listening to film scores for sure. But yeah, and then if you want like a random one, this is not a great film, but I do like how they did the score for Red Sparrow. It's a 2018
Okay.
Jennifer Lawrence film that was directed by
Yeah.
Francis Lawrence, and they used the same guy that they did all the Hunger Games with. Because
Mhm,
it sounds very like spy movie-ish, which I love, like that vibe
mhm.
and that music. So that's why I will listen to that score as well for just a random pick.
Yeah, fun facts. I have a Red Sparrow 4K because it was like $5 on Black Friday one year, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I watched that again for $5.
Yeah, yeah.
So why
It's
not?
yeah.
But
I definitely have seen it more than once. It's not great. It's not terrible. The thing is like Jennifer Lawrence is so talented. Like I want to watch
mhm,
her. You know what I mean? So
yeah. But no, Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, they're so hot right now. They they are doing so many and they're interesting scores. And I think that's what makes it so cool. It's not like, hey, we're playing like the hits of something and you can feel those influences. Like they're really doing something different with
mhm.
their scores. And I distinctly recall they did a cover of the Halloween score
I heard
back
that.
when the 2018 Halloween movie came out, which obviously John Carpenter did the score with his son on that one, but that that it was a very interesting interpretation of the Halloween score from Trent
Yeah.
Reznor, Atlas Frost. So that was
Mhm,
pretty cool too.
mhm.
Now, my last question for you, Melissa, is what I like to call what really grinds my gears question. So,
Yeah.
what's that one thing that you would like movies to stop doing?
Stop being 2.5 hours long. Except for the substance. I don't know what it is. If it's something about like being able to be in the theaters to like play longer, or I mean, because I feel like a lot of the times, if you watch my reviews on YouTube, a lot of the times that's a lot of my complaints. It sounds very repetitive. I People are gonna argue, well, it's gonna be as long as it needs to be. A lot of times I'm like, you could have shaved off 20 minutes of that and I would have liked your movie more.
There you
So
go.
too long.
Well, and that's a fair point, and like I know, honestly, I've been looking at a lot of like the smaller prestige films coming out for the end of this year,
Mhm.
and that one is like Sacred Fig. I looked that up. That's over 2.5 hours. I'm like, holy crap! The Brutalist
I heard that's like
is
4 hours, right?
it's 3 hours and 40 minutes, I think it is, and I'm like, holy sh! Like, because I would feel less adverse to that if they
Mhm.
didn't play 30 minutes of nonsense before every single movie at the theaters now. Because,
Oh
like,
my god, yeah.
that weekend of Gladiator 2 on Saturday and Wicked on Sunday
Yeah.
was 6 hours and 10 minutes in a theater for me
Woo.
because like before Wicked, I timed it.
Hmm.
I'm sitting there. They showed 9 trailers and 5 bumpers
That's a
at my
lot.
AMC because it was like the AMC bumper. Then it
Yeah.
was the new AMC laser
Yeah.
bumper, which it was worth seeing in laser because those colors popped. But
Hmm.
I didn't need to be advertised to me. I'm already there. Um, and then they have their whole new one where it's like this two young people are imagining they're in movies together and blah blah blah. And then Nicole Kidman. And then they had John M. Chu do a whole Dolby bumper.
Oh,
And I'm like, I'm in the Dolby theater. I already chose this. I already know it's good. Go advertise this on one of the other screens where it's like, maybe next time you should see this in Dolby. And then
yeah.
there was 9 trailers. So when it's turning into 3+ hours at the theater, not even just because of the movie, it makes it hard. Like, I think the longest movie I've ever sat through in a theater was The Irishman,
Mm-hmm.
because I did get to see that in a theater.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long time. The Brutalist might actually be the longest movie I
That's
go see in a
that's
theater.
a killer. Yeah, that's definitely one I will have to watch in multiple sittings in my house.
Yeah. And like they're selling that one on IMAX and everything because it's like 70 millimeter print and stuff like that. I'm like, woo wee, this is gonna be a this is gonna be a long time in the movies. And
Definitely.
like a Complete Unknown's 2 hours and 25 minutes. Nosferatu's almost 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's just looking at all the movies coming out the rest of this year. I'm like, I'm gonna be spending a lot of time sitting in the
Sitting
theater.
down. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know.
and then we have movies like My Old Ass, nice hour and 28 minute enjoyable time.
Whenever I hear in movies like 90 minutes or less, I'm like, oh, yes.
So I wind up getting screening links for a lot of indie films and like
Yeah.
really small films, and like most of them are under 90 minutes. I'm like, this is lovely. I could
Yeah.
squeeze this in somewhere. I just saw Flow, that new animated film about the cat and the animals
Uh-huh.
surviving a flood. Hour and 25 minutes.
Ooh, lovely.
Like you could almost watch 3 flows in one brutalist. Wild. But yeah,
That's,
so I completely understand where you're coming from. And
yeah.
this is coming from somebody, if I look at my favorite movies of all time are Lord of the Rings, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Ben-Hur, you
Hmm.
got to earn it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
You
got
know, if you have me sitting here, I have to feel like, all right, like I didn't even feel the time. I had a great time. I wasn't bored. This was great. And it's like I rarely feel that way. So it's just like,
hmm,
all right, I'm just gonna wait till I can see this at home.
there you go.
Yeah.
But Melissa, I always like to wrap up my show by having my guests ask me a question. So, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
Okay, so part of today's theme was romance and love. So I want to know from all the movies you've seen this year, would you say you have an on-screen crush, whether it's like talent wise or it could be superficial wise, whatever you want wise?
That's such an interesting question. Honestly, I pulling up my letterbox rankings from this year. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to avoid just saying the whole threesome from Challengers because it was hot. I'm
Yes.
not gonna lie. But
That
like,
movie didn't even, interestingly enough, did not have any sex scenes in it though. There were some kisses.
oh, that tennis match at the end was the hottest sex scene you're gonna see in film this year.
Yeah. It
Luca Guadagnino, one horny filmmaker. You. Uh,
is.
this will be an interesting pick because there is one particular character that I really like. Have you seen the movie Daddy?
No, I have not, but that's with Dakota, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, by the end of that movie, I was hooked. Like, I'm not the biggest. I've never been the biggest Dakota Johnson fan. Like, she's in a lot of films. Like, I'm a huge Bad Times at El Royale. First time I saw Cynthia Erivo, absolutely loved her in that. I'm like, Dakota Johnson's like my least favorite part of this movie. But watching some of her work recently, that film, I loved her in that. And I'm just like, I love this character. I love this performance.
Mhm.
And not gonna lie, it's like there's parts in that film where like she's texting her lover. And it's just like this is getting like sultry in the back of this taxi cab. So like I that's probably one that stood out to me.
Okay.
Probably. Outside of Challengers. It just felt like that movie's just that movie's just like one giant sexual tension just rolling throughout the whole entire film. But no, I I really connected with that character from Daddy-O, and I'm just like, okay, I could see why people really like Dakota Johnson at this point because of that movie.
Yeah.
Um, and then you just have uh, a middle-aged Sean Penn just getting all up in her business and asking her all types of questions and stuff like that. I really did love that film, and it made me actually want to like I kind of want to see what Dakota Johnson does next. So
Nice. Yeah.
I'm a fan. Dakota Johnson has a new fan in me because
Awesome.
my buddy Rod is the biggest Dakota Johnson fan I've ever met in my whole entire life. Uh, he literally his Instagram is Dakota Johnson Fan Club. Uh, it's one of like the taglines and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I know, yeah, she has a lot of fans. I know people really like her because of like her dry sense of humor, like in her interviews. So yeah, she's definitely beloved out there.
oh she was having fun with those Madam Web interviews.
Those interviews were so entertaining. Like you could tell she was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just here because I'm being paid by Sony.
Yo, I don't know who gave less F's this year during their interviews, her or Ridley
And
Scott.
yeah.
Because who I think is too old to have any left. So, or a filter for that matter.
Yeah.
But that's a different story.
Yeah.
Appreciate that question. That was a very different question.
Thank
Um, Definitely now a fan of Dakota Johnson. Really appreciated that performance. And Am I Okay? I think was the other one that dropped on Max that she was in. I really like that
I
too.
still need to see that. It's on my to be watch list because I do want to watch that one.
Also, I think that one's like 80, 85 minutes. That's a nice lean one too.
I love it even more now.
There you go. But Melissa, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on and chat movies with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always so much fun when we get to talk and nerd out about the various movies. And I have a lot of movies I need to watch before the end of the year, before the Oscars come. So, yeah.
Well, sending you all the good vibes for all of your movie watching. Get some good movie watching done. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.
Bye.